think I got it.
It's empty.
Perhaps the real treasure is true friendship and the spirit of adventure.
Welcome, friends. We're back talking Quantum Leap Season 2 of the Revival, the continuated series, whatever you want to call it, Episode 10, this one entitled The Family Treasure. Now, there will be spoilers ahead. If those are not for you, please take this as your last warning. Now, let's crack on with the show. First things first, right off the bat, this episode bucks the trend or breaks the tradition I thought they were setting up over the past few episodes, whereby Ben was going to leap forward in time, so each leap chronologically for him, he was going to meet Hannah in whatever gap of time was between the last leap, so several years, several months, whatever. This episode sends him backwards in time prior to a lot of the last few leaps, and I both liked and disliked that. In fact, I both liked and disliked this episode for various reasons, but I'll get back to Hannah later on because there was I don't want to say clever, but there was an interesting thing they did later on in the episode. We'll see how that plays out. The leap itself is in 1953. Ben finds himself in one of three sisters. I suppose I should say siblings, but at this point in the story, he knows them as one of three sisters. Their father had just died, who was this grand adventurer who spent all of his time looking for treasure and not enough of it dealing with them as a family, so they're a little put out by it. Some of them have differing opinions. They're all very, very different people, so none of them are really kind of connecting in the way that they should. That seems to be the reason Ben is here, to kind of put the family back together while they go on this little adventure, this little excursion, this little treasure hunt. And I found the treasure hunt portion pretty bare bones, but it was serviceable for what it was trying to do. None of it was all that fresh. The actual expedition with the clues and the dangers, it all felt very, very familiar, and it didn't feel like much of it was all that inspired. Now, the one part I did very much enjoy, coming all the way to the end, they discovered that the treasure wasn't actually there because their father had actually found it and returned it home, realizing that the true treasure was the family and all that stuff. Now, I did like this because something that kind of annoys me in these situations in movies and stories in TV shows where they go on a treasure hunt and they find a map from somebody who had uncovered all of the clues, but for some reason, the treasure was still there. I liked the little switch at the end when they find the treasure and it's not there, because the father had the map, he had solved all the riddles, solved all the clues, so for him to have not actually made it didn't make sense. So I liked how they addressed that. One thing that felt a little disingenuous to me was, how did Addison, with all of her future knowledge and technology and Ziggy and blah, 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 not know that the jewels were hidden in the wall? Does that mean that over the course of the next 75 years, nobody ever took that painting off the wall and discovered a giant safe with these multi-million-dollar jewels in there? I know I'm overthinking this, but it seems like Addison should have had that information from the get-go, and that really would have made the whole leap moot. I guess that would have resulted in no storyline, but these are the things I like to overthink. While I didn't find the leap to be all that new and engaging, I did like that they were mostly focused on kind of bringing these characters closer together. Obviously, one of the big components of this is one of the three siblings is non-binary and wants to be treated as such. Obviously, being the 1950s, this was kind of an unheard of thing. This is something I don't have a problem with them trying to tell in the story. I just wish it had been integrated into the story a little bit more than having this set piece where they go on this adventure, come to a stop, have a 5-minute scene where they deal with it, and then go forth. I wish it had actually played into the storyline a bit more. And while I did like the fact that Ben was able to kind of deal with this situation using his future knowledge, his friend Ian, who had gone through something similar, all of that stuff was good. I think it would have been a little bit better, and maybe I'm just overthinking again, had Ian participated in this, perhaps being the hologram at this point, or just, I don't know, maybe speaking to Ben to give Ben a little bit more insight into the situation. Instead, Ian's entire role in this is one very minor scene looking at the screen, just kind of, good on you, Ben. Again, I just thought that was a bit of a missed opportunity. That brings me to a problem I've had with this season overall and just modern TV shows in general, the condensing of seasons into a shortened run and trying to load them up with so many components, so many characters, so many plot lines that they don't have the time to really develop things in a naturalistic way. I know part of this could be changing directions in the storylines, part of it could have to do with the strikes that went on and they had to kind of halt and then restart production, all of that stuff. It just seems like all of the plot lines suddenly came flooding forth in this episode. They had to just shove them back in there because we're getting so close to the end of the season. I just wish there was a way they could have balanced all these things a bit better. Not being a writer, I don't know how they could have done that, but it seems like they could have woven them throughout the episodes a bit more, maybe deal with the modern day stuff. It's less of an afterthought because originally in the first Quantum Leap, the leap was always the primary story. There wasn't an ongoing mystery in the current day like this show does, and not only is there a modern day component, there are a vast array of modern day characters who are very rarely utilized to any real extent. So we bring back the Tom and Addison relationship here to have them get engaged, and then immediately by the end of the episode, they break it off because Addison realizes she's not ready, and obviously this is because of the feeling she still has for Ben, kind of going along with the storyline in the past, where she hears some stuff and she puts two and two together. So that's kind of coming to a head. Then there's that shady corporation where Ian's partner works that they had gone to try and get this computer chip to bring Ben back into the fold after the 3-year time gap. They suddenly come back into the storyline. Somehow, I don't know how, they just waltz into this super protected government facility that has a time freaking machine in it, and this corporation just walks in. Magic wasn't even there, wasting Ernie Hudson. Now, I know he was earlier on in the episode, but wouldn't Magic have been there to kind of deal with this? I know I keep harping on this point. They're utterly wasting Ernie Hudson in the show. I don't mean to talk too badly about this because it does seem like a lot of the plot lines are finally ramping up and they're going to come together in the next couple of episodes. But frankly, they haven't done enough to service them throughout the season for me to feel like I want a proper resolution. And the fact that Hannah wasn't in this episode kind of just made it feel like they were grasping for straws to just throw all these things in here before they get back to that storyline. They seem like they want to tell more. Granted, I think Hannah is going to be connected to it in some point, that she has set up this original DARPA program, or her son perhaps is the one in charge of this. I'm not necessarily certain that isn't the case. Maybe that's why they had such easy access to this program. I said I would get back to it. The Hannah in the future thing, Ben does a quasi Back to the Future type thing where he writes a letter and asks it to be sent after May of 1970, which was the last time he met her. So I liked that. We have yet to see if it actually works out. Maybe this will be like the Voyager episode where they did something similar and the letter did never arrive. I think more than likely the letter will arrive. Now, what she decides to do with that, I think, is what a lot of this will be hinging on. But that, again, remains to be seen. I'm sure we'll see that in the next episode, because we're almost at the end of Season 2. We have no confirmation of a Season 3, so I have to imagine they're probably going to try to wrap up as many of these storylines as they can during the course of Season 2. Well, yes, leaving some stuff for a potential Season 3. But I don't think they're going to leave everything wide open for another season. And it is interesting to note they haven't referenced Sam all that much at all this season, so the people speculating, myself included, that he may be the grand thing they're working up towards, I think that's a lot less likely than it was during Season 1. Now, I would love to be mistaken, but it seems like they've moved so far beyond that, that if they were to bring him back at the end of Season 2 or even the start of Season 3, it would kind of just throw everything off the rails again. But those are my thoughts. Again, I thought that this was a fine episode for what it was trying to do, if not a bit crowded and a bit threadbare on a lot of the components. I am enjoying the show and the season overall, and I do genuinely want to know where we go from here. Leave all your thoughts down below, like, share, subscribe, do all those fancy YouTube things. But until next time...
Sorry, what you're talking about is really important, but also the Shamrock.